Hi everyone. Today we are joined by two special guests from Coal Plus Ice, a combined documentary photography exhibition and climate festival that explores the impacts of climate change and the continued use of fossil fuels. Coal Plus Ice is taking place from September 4th to the 23rd at the Fort Mason Center for the Arts and Culture in San Francisco. With us today are Tom Corwin, Festival Creative Director, and David Breashears, filmmaker, adventurer, and featured photographer in the Coal Plus Ice exhibition. So first off, I wanted to first ask, what exactly does the name Coal Plus Ice signify?
Well, I think David and I might have different answers. I would say this is Tom. From my perspective, Coal and Ice, the exhibition, really takes you through a visual narrative from dirty coal mining through to the melting glaciers of the Himalayas, and then into further consequences, and then beyond into a zone of solutions. So ultimately, it's about the relationship and the impact of one on the other.
I think Tom has said it very eloquently. I would also add that this term "coal plus ice" for me, creates a tension, that this tension between putting carbon in the air from a very dirty source, coal, and the consequences it has on glaciers and ice to respond very quickly to changes in temperature, warming especially. So the two of those together, this narrative and the narrative created by this tension, because these things simply do not go together. We're seeing the harm caused to our planet, and this exhibit leads us through that story.
Wonderful. Well, Coal and Ice, as I said earlier, is both a climate festival and a photography exhibition. And the Climate Festival really focuses, I think, on a lot of aspects of art in terms of, I know there's a performance by the San Francisco Symphony, and obviously the art exhibition for Coal and Ice presents a lot of different photography. So I was wondering, why are the arts ever important to promoting collective action towards increasing environmental issues?
Well, I would say, people are complex creatures, and they connect with issues and topic and meaning in different ways. And one really key and important and powerful way of connecting to an issue, or the bottom line of something, is through the arts. And there's something really particularly powerful about the arts, is that arts are by nature not necessarily polarized. People can walk in with an open mind and be moved in their own way and respond in their own way to art as it's presented. So I think, the conceit of Coal and Ice is that the exhibition, Coal Plus Ice, is that we've been, talking about this for a long time. Our executive producer, Orville Schell, who really founded this idea, has said, look, we've been talking about this in realms of policy and science, and it's time to try something else, because all this conversation is not having as big as impact as we really need to have. So let's find new ways to connect with people on this issue and try to get them engaged and connected and activated to make some difference on climate change.
Yeah, I would like to add just a little bit to that. First of all, there's the idea of the different spaces being used, especially the Fort Mason exhibit space, and what happens when people are together in a room. Information is exchanged, sometimes almost silently, when someone gathers around an image and another person gathers, and then sometimes four people are gathering, and sometimes people start talking about what they're seeing and trying to understand it. So for me, when I go to an exhibit, an art exhibit, whether it's photography or painting, it always poses a question. The piece of art is there for me to pose a question. Why was it made? What does it mean? What does it point to? And so I think that starting conversations that way, instead of speaking at people with a bullhorn and telling them how to think is a very, very effective way to get people to take action, because they have to feel it themselves to take it. They can't be told what to do.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree whenever I'm in a space, even if I'm not really conversing with the other people there, but in like a photo or art gallery, you can definitely just feel something in the atmosphere there. And especially in a exhibit such as Coal Plus Ice, that really is focused on, the consequences of fossil fuels and climate change, that definitely can promote a lot of action to the people who are visiting the exhibit.
I would just add to that, only to describe a little bit the exhibition and how immersive it is, and to be sure that people understand this is very large scale. It's in a 50,000 square foot space. It utilizes 45 projectors and very large screens, up to 52 feet wide and 13 feet tall for some
Wow.
of these images. And so and all these screens are constantly revolving in terms of the images they're showing. So it's not static. It's a dynamic, constantly changing environment of images on theme. So it's really going to be quite extraordinary.
Fantastic. Well, along with that, you were discussing the exhibition design, and I was wondering how the exhibition design kind of ties in with the idea that you're trying to portray to the visitor, and how it contributes to the message that we need to prevent these negative impacts of fossil fuels on the world.
Yeah, well, I would say, the design very consciously takes people through an evolving narrative. And so the curation of images and the layout of those images, and really just even the spatial sense of how they relate from one to another, were all designed to really follow this narrative from dirty coal mining, through to the melting glaciers and everything in between. So it's a really well curated and sculpted narrative.
Well, one additional thing about the exhibit is that it's not telling you the sky is falling. It's not telling you run for cover. Where it's very the images are powerful, and they tell a very serious story, a story with very serious consequences. But it's important for people to know that you're not going to go in there and think that the world is coming to an end.
Great. Well, switching gears a little bit, David, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about the difficulties and surprises that you've experienced while combining climbing with photography.
I'm trained as a mountaineer. I grew up wanting to be a mountaineer. I became a mountaineer, then I had to make a living, so I did that through photography and filmmaking. I had my first trip to the Himalaya when I was 23 years old. I've been on over 60 expeditions, and I've climbed Mount Everest 5 times.
Wow.
And that include making, shooting and directing the Everest IMAX film. So this is a land I know. On the Tibetan side of the Himalaya, the Pakistan side, the Indian side, and the Nepalese side. So the challenges were there because we were very small teams. Funding's always limited for these things, and traveling very fast and light. But it was sometimes some of the biggest challenges, to be quite honest, were just weather. We need clear weather for this match photography. And there was one time, 15 miles from K2 in the Karakoram Range in Pakistan, I wanted this panorama. It's one of the greatest panoramic images ever taken. It was shot in 1909 by Vittorio Sella. And I was not going to leave there without that image. And we waited 13 days in a camp on a glacier. Other times we've had high winds, but I would tell you this, every bit of it's a joy for me. I don't look at it as hard work. Finding the photo points when you just go to an archive, the Royal Geographical Society, archives in Biella, Italy, archives elsewhere, you find an image. Well, that image may be taken 4 or 5,000 feet above the glaciers and the mountains. You have to climb up there and find that photo point. And trying to imagine where an image was taken from requires a lot of experience. And a couple of times we did climb up 3,000 or 4,000 feet to a little peak, only to see that we should have been in the peak a mile away. But the only way to do it is go down, rest a day, and climb up again. But it's fun. It's not only the science behind it, but just kind of being investigative in finding these photo points. So that's what we did for, since 2007, we've had over 18 or 19 expeditions.
I'd like to add one thing to that, just to contextualize a piece that I think David left out, is just that part of this work that David's been doing is to really sort of chronicle the evolution of that mountain range over time. So why he's, as if I'm not mistaken, trying to match a photo, so you can really see the changes over the course of time to that mountain range. And in fact, there is a huge landscape image in Colon Ice where you see the transition. It moves from the old image to the new image, and it's very, very dramatic.
Fantastic. Well, that's an amazing concept, to be able to compare it throughout more than a century. And I was kind of wondering how exactly you came to develop this concept and what kind of gave you the passion to kind of pursue looking at environmental issues and the impacts that it's having on places such as the glaciers.
Well, I had a deep connection to the land and the people, and I had the necessary skills in still photography and in filmmaking. But it wasn't until I started to see other match images. Match photography has been around as long as the first 2 pictures ever taken, probably. That's not a new concept. And so I thought, I was sent to Tibet by the PBS program Frontline, who were doing a series called Heat, and they wanted about climate change. And really, to tell you the truth, I felt very ignorant and a bit ashamed of myself when I stood where the famed Himalayan climber George Mallory, the one who said, "Why did he climb Everest? Because it's there." He stood at this place in 1921. It's hard to find this place. And I took that picture, and I saw right then, because it was a digital camera, and then I saw and I had the print in my hand from George Mallory, and I said, why didn't I know about this? I said, I've been treading on these glaciers for 35 years. But of course, they've been melting right under my feet, but you don't notice it when it's incremental melt. And then I made a promise to myself to start a nonprofit called Glacier Works and do what I could to bring this imagery home to people so that the people who inhabit these ranges, who I feel a great affinity to, can devise strategies and ways we're not expecting them to mitigate it because they don't put any carbon into the air, but to be more resilient and plan for the future. And the imagery gets their attention and the world's attention. So that's why I did it. I did it out of a commitment to not sit on my hands and watch everything and complain about it. And I did it because I care, like I said, about the land and the people.
So zooming in, I was wondering, what steps do you hope individual visitors take in order to combat climate change on their individual level after their visit?
As mentioned, we will have a solutions zone, and one of which will present a lot of innovative solutions and solutions that are really hands-on. I mean, there are a lot of things that people can do as individuals to move the needle on this issue. And I think it's one of the great challenges of this climate change as an issue, that it seems so big, in a way, hard to get a sense of how can one person make a difference. And I think a lot of people sort of lean away from it because it seems too big to really lean into. We really hope to break through that point of resistance and provide a number of ways that people can, in their daily lives, take action around their relationship with food, around their relationship with garbage, around their relationship with their personal environments and their homes, that when engaged en masse really does make a difference. And we're working with different partners to showcase a broad range of solutions. And one of the events we're hosting will be with the Biomimicry Institute. Biomimicry, which is a practice that looks to nature for solutions. There are a lot of really brilliant and low impact and I should say high impact, but small things we can do that are shown to us in nature that can make a huge difference in terms of cooling our homes, or there are many different realms, how we manage food, that are really powerful solutions.
Well said, Tom. There's so many ways to go at this from the policy level, which is where you get the top-down approach, and things can really, really start to happen. So there's the policy side, and then there's the things Tom was talking about. And look at America. So we're a nation of 310 million people. So let's just say some millions of them cannot make change because they're either very old or they're very young. So you don't expect a 5-year-old to stop driving a car because they're not driving one. The point being that you don't have to dramatically alter your lifestyle. It's not like people have to, just turn off the heat in their homes in the winter. I live here in the Boston area. I need to heat my home. The pipes will freeze, but I keep it very cool. I bicycle around my town in the months when it's possible to shop. It's simple things. Drive less, bike more. As Tom said, shop more intelligently. Shop with food sources that aren't contributing a tremendous amount of carbon to the air. So when you get, let's say 290 or 280 million people taking small steps, the amount of carbon that is not put into the air, the atmosphere, because of that is enormous and very consequential. So I want people to think that, I don't want people to be so overwhelmed. They say, well, I really can't change anything. No, if we all do a few small steps, it's a huge reduction in our carbon footprint.
Wonderful. Well, yeah, I definitely think that along with that, the climate festival that Coal Plus Ice is putting on, you're surrounding yourself with people who I think are making a lot of those small impact decisions, maybe different ones, such as taking shorter showers or biking to work. And by kind of surrounding yourself with those people while also enjoying dance and music and other like family activities, that definitely just kind of gets an atmosphere where maybe everyone will start to kind of do a little bit more, and just that little bit extra can really make a difference.
You know what I tell people when they ask me just at a dinner table, as if I'm some sort of expert on this, but I'm not. I say live your life more efficiently. You don't need that massive car. You don't need to drive to 4 different places. Or just make a trip to Starbucks for a cup of coffee and come back to your home. Make it at home. So it's just what I've learned from mountaineering is in a big mountain where you got to carry little gear and you have little fuel for your stove. I myself believe that a lot can be attained by just more efficient living.
I think that's absolutely true. And I think, a lot of the things that we've become attached to in technology and things that do contribute to carbon emissions are also on a bigger scale things that can disconnect us. And I mean, this is a broader topic, but I feel like I want to touch on it. There's much that can happen with the power of community. And, I was looking into, for example, I just saw this really amazing film. It's a premiere, it's not released yet, but this week actually, called Fantastic Fungi. It's about mushrooms and it's about mycelium and about how mycelium, this, sort of the roots really or mushroom are really the fruits of mycelium, which is this network of cells that lives underneath the earth and all over the planet and is sort of a communication network that is taken advantage of for a lot of other plant species. They speak through this network and it's a means of plants listening to each other and caring for each other. And I'm not saying this really well, but I think the bottom line point is that in community, we can make a huge difference. And there is comfort in community. And I think a lot of the technology and the hardware we're attached to can erode our sense of power in a way, in that we lose our connection with our community. And so we're hoping that, being in the environment of Coal Plus Ice, in these really powerful communities of, artistic expression that will be happening within this really stunning environment of imagery, will really connect people on this issue and also break down how imposing it can seem.
That's exactly right. And also to get people to the point where, for instance, I'm surrounded here in Marblehead by some fairly liberal people who don't deny anything about climate change and its consequences. And they're well educated and well informed, well read. I sit at the table with them sometimes, and again, they're asking me questions. And now I've become quite fearless because there's all this sentiment. Oh, I saw Al Gore's movie. Oh, have you seen this movie? Have you read that article? Yes, I've read them all. Sentiment is not action. And I will look across the table at someone and say, what have you done? And there's silence. I say, just tell me one thing you've done. Just tell me of one nonprofit for climate change you've contributed to. And I've said to them, you can send me as many articles from the New York Times and the New Yorker and fill my email box. Woe is the world, or we're going to hell in a handbasket. But just start doing something. And that's an important idea for people to get their head around. Caring about climate change, knowing it exists, is not action. You have to do something. That's it.
And you can do things in community. And I think that's right. That's an important piece because there's connection in the doing. It's that can even, enhance your daily experience.
Well, hopefully, I think that this festival and the whole month of September, with everything that's happening in terms of climate change, with Governor Brown's Climate Summit and Coal Plus Ice and the San Francisco Green Film Festival, I think there's more than 350 events with different people in different organizations that are coming into the San Francisco Bay Area to have these conversations about climate change. And hopefully we can start forming communities around this even more. Well, that is all I have for you today, all of my questions. So, first of all, thank you so much again for joining me.
Yeah, this is wonderful. And, our producer, Leah Thompson, is working night and day on this, and Tom is, and others. And we have a really, really wonderful team. We have our community, don't we, Tom?
We do, absolutely.
And there's a lot of people out there, Tom himself, arranging all of these events. And thank you, Michael, for becoming a part of the team today.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, just hearing and talking to so many people who are really taking action in these issues and trying to just broaden the conversation has been spectacular. And I love talking to people such as both of you who do have a passion for this sort of work and who are putting themselves out there to make a change. And so thank you so much for that as well.
And I'd just like to encourage people to check out coalanice.org, where we'll have a listing of all our events, which are really broad spectrum, from events at the Symphony, which is a 4-night series, but including a beautiful partnership with the Green Film Festival, which we're really pleased about. And we'll be having a spotlight on solutions, and we're having Snap Judgment, do a live show at Coal and Ice, Youth Speaks spoken word event. It was a national competition, and the winners are coming to perform on the theme of climate change at Coal and Ice. There's really a broad spectrum, so I'd encourage people to check it out.
Definitely. I know I personally can't wait to attend the San Francisco Symphony's performance of one of my favorite pieces, Appalachian Spring by Copeland. I absolutely love that, and I can't wait to be there for that. Coal Plus Ice will have its U.S. premiere here at San Francisco's Fort Mason Center for the Arts and Culture from September 4th to the 23rd. And also make sure that you check out the San Francisco Green Film Festival, which will be screening a number of environmental films this upcoming September as well. Thank you again, both of you, for joining me. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Pleasure, Michael. Thanks.